Job applications shouldn't feel like a rigged game, but the hiring process can be complicated and sometimes leave candidates feeling like they are in the dark. In this episode, we're going to talk about hiring practices that need to go and how you can beat them.
The first one is more like, from what I see, is like the catch-22, prioritizing experience over actual skills, right?
Yep.
So, what's wrong about that? A lot of people think it's normal.
Yeah. So we've talked about this before, specifically at Diversitech, right? We had a whole panel about this last year. And one of the things we discussed is the training and what that looks like. If you're hiring a candidate, would you rather somebody who has 5 years of experience in something and maybe like a consulting role, they're doing it freelance, so they're maybe doing this 10 to 15 hours per week? Or would you rather somebody who has spent a year with intentional education, training, and hands-on practice in that role?
Here's what I noticed. They want both. They are looking for unicorns. And by unicorn, I mean they are stuck on finding those two components that are very rarely available in the marketplace. And when they are available, they don't even want to pay the premium for that availability.
Yeah.
So that's what I see as the problem,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is why it's one of the hiring practices that we feel so strongly needs to go. There are certain skills that you can absolutely teach, right? Anyone who wants to learn Linux can learn Linux. We always say the key to learning and being successful is being dedicated, having perseverance, having that grit of determining that nothing is going to get in your way. And for me, in hiring, I would much rather somebody who already has that and maybe a little bit reduced on qualifications than someone who's 100% qualified but is missing the mark on, being competitive, wanting to level up, wanting to learn.
I have a question. Do you think the problem is more at the HR, meaning at the level where they're making the decision about creating the role, at the hiring manager level, the person actually interviewing the role for the role, who's going to work with that person they're hiring, or the recruiting part? Where do you think the problem begins, or the problem mostly lies?
Yeah. So I want to start with the recruiters. I would say this is the least likely of where the problem is. In fact, I think more often than not, recruiters are on our side and advocate for looking for candidates who are a good culture fit, who are dedicated and hardworking, and who show the initiative over qualifications.
And show the training,
yes.
The relevant training.
Yes, absolutely. So ultimately, I think the problem lies with where the job description is developed, whether that's HR, talent acquisition, it's a little different company to company. And then also on hiring managers who are not willing to budge. And recruiters do talk about this a lot. It's one of the challenges that they face. They'll find a candidate that is absolutely perfect for the role, but missing 1 year of, they're at 4 years of experience instead of 5, and hiring manager says no. I do want to also add that it varies from hiring process, from one hiring process to the next. Meaning, for example, if you're applying in GovTech, this will be anything federal, state level, or government contractors. Usually there's some sort of regulation there that's in place, right? So that's a whole different beast. It's not even really...
Especially in federal government.
Yes, absolutely. It's not really even up to the people that you're talking to, or maybe not even up to the people that they're talking to, right? So that's a whole different animal. But when it comes to just corporate, there's a lot of different places where those job descriptions are made, and it can vary from company to company. But if there is, clearance required in that role, or, there's a certain requirement because of the field that they're in, for example, healthcare, where they're having insurance companies are involved in, hiring practices, there may be some limitations even for the company.
And also there is something even more simple. Sometimes hiring managers, they treat this as a challenge. Basically, you have to be worthy of joining the team.
Yep.
If they don't feel that you're worthy, you know, I remember a friend of mine went to an interview and the guy said, all right, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. If you answer any of them wrong, we end the interview immediately. Why all that posturing?
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you being hazed.
Yes.
You know, you have to show your worthiness to be part of the team, and this needs to go.
It needs to go. And it's a specific thing that tends to happen in tech, right? We know that kind of hazing mentality where it's like, if you haven't, you know, done enough, you haven't been above and beyond the qualifications, it's like you're not even worthy of submitting an application here.
And no one is worried about, okay, instead of speaking like that to a candidate, how about I have a plan on leveling that candidate up to where I need them to be?
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's none of that. It's about, are you worthy of coming in and delivering, you see? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there are other things that need to go as well. For example, not providing feedback in interviews.
Yeah. So we used to be able to provide feedback in interviews. Candidates used to get feedback a long time ago, and then it became a liability for the company. So it's pretty rare now that you'll get feedback, which is why it's so critical when you're in an interview process to rely a little bit on the recruiter and ask them what to expect so that you can try to tailor a little bit.
But isn't there ways to get a little bit of feedback? Ways you can ask some questions, clarifying questions to still get some feedback, unofficial feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. Even before you get to the hiring manager, you can certainly ask a recruiter, are there any skills that are missing from my resume that you would expect to see from an applicant on this role? You can ask them, what are the skills that this hiring manager specifically values for this position? And, try to make some adjustments there, right? If it's not already on your resume and you're going to be submitting a second resume, you want to be mindful about that things don't get lost in communication, but you can certainly bring it into your interview and really highlight those skills that are missing.
But I would also encourage you to still ask for feedback. Even sometimes you're not going to get it, or you're going to get BS in place of feedback. But some smaller companies, they don't care about that liability, especially companies like Yellowtail Tech. We hire for technical positions, and I give people feedback.
Yeah.
I tell them if they did great. I tell them if they didn't. I tell them what they could improve for next time or for the next job they're applying for. Some people are generous enough and think it's necessary to give feedback. So if you're going for a startup, because our students, they land in very different environments. It's not always a big corporation with a lot of big liability risk. It's not always a government with their set of liability. Sometimes it's a startup, sometimes it's a SMB. So ask for feedback, because that is what is going to help you either address them immediately or learn for the next interview.
Yeah,
you see?
Absolutely. And even when I did hiring in corporate where I couldn't give feedback, I always valued candidates that asked for it. I personally think you should be required to give feedback on an interview. I mean, essentially offering a position is feedback in its own right. But if someone's completing interviews and they're being biased, I think they should be allowed to tell on themselves, So, I mean, why not?
Yeah. And that's why at Yellowtail Tech, in our mock interviews, we give immediate feedback. And we know our mock interviews is important because this honest feedback, this immediate and honest and recorded feedback is important for them to do better, because they are not likely to get it when they go out on the marketplace.
Yeah,
see?
Absolutely. And that's something you can do for yourself, right? You can record yourself, interviewing, even if you don't have a specific platform that you utilize, use some self-assessment along the way, get some practice questions in, look at your body language, your tone, things like that to help garner that feedback in advance.
So what's another thing that you think is BS in the marketplace when it comes to hiring?
So being dishonest about the hiring process is something that I am seeing become a more regular hot topic, and there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Okay. So what can our candidates do? We know it's not always straightforward. We know people don't always tell the truth for the right reason. Well, there's never a good reason to not tell the truth.
No.
But we know what's the reality. So what can our community, what can our students do? What can people out there trying to transition do about that?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you format your resume in a simple way. There's a lot of talk about applicant tracking systems, ATS. While they're not automatically rejecting, there are filters that recruiters can use to help limit how much they have to search through those applications. So having keywords on your resume is really important. Being intentional about your job search is also extremely critical. You want to keep track of the jobs that you're applying to, where you're at in the application process, and follow through on those. Follow up when you can if you have somebody that you can follow up with. Don't forget to partner with recruiters along the way. Ask for them for tips and guidance as you're going through that interview process. And remember to keep your head high as you're going through the job application process. I know it can be tough and daunting, but if you do it with intention, you can get really far.